All right. And so this is my first time doing this, so let me make sure I did this correctly. Okay, here we go. All right. I can see us on our YouTube channel up here. Sorry, guys. This is new for me because normally I do this with Johnny, our production manager, but Johnny couldn't make this one happen. So welcome to the Previews World Roundtable. I'm on the wheels of steel in the background here, making it happen. I'm also hosting. I am Troy Jeffrey Allen of Previews World, of course. And real quick, I'm going to go around the horn, as they say, and introduce our panel of guests for this SNYDER CUT Roundtable. First up, you guys recognize him if you've seen Previews World before, if you watch this channel. His name is Mystical Green Beanie. He's representing the Flash. What's up, Joaquin?
How you doing, guys? Pretty good.
Okay. And to his, I guess to his right or my left, Derek Scarzella of Action A Go Go. Say what's up, Derek.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Cool. ActionAGoGo.com. And on top of that, we have Mr. Joe Carabeo, filmmaker extraordinaire.
How's it going, everybody?
And finally, last but not least, he is our Doctor Strange, which I know is we're cross-referencing fandoms here, but you know what? There's more of that to come, I guarantee you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Patrick Michael Strange of Nerds.
Yo. What's good? Kuya P in the house. Good to see y'all.
Wait, I meant to ask you this off camera, but like Kuya, isn't it like uncle or something like that?
Brother.
Okay, there you
Brother
go.
P. Yes.
Uncle is what? Uncle is Tito.
Tito, that's right.
Yeah, Tito. Yeah.
We're all brothers here. We're all brothers here.
Yeah, we all brothers here. So we all Kuyas here, man. All fam.
There you go. I love it. Represent
and for Samoan, we're all Oos. We're all Oos.
Yeah,
Samoan,
Oos. Right? Shout out to my Samoan fam out there.
Awesome. So we, of course, are here to talk about Justice League SNYDER CUT. You know what? I wanted to do this earlier, but we kind of had a bunch of scheduling conflicts. And by chance or by dumb luck or whatever you want to call it, we were able to get all these people together. And so I just kind of want to point out we have like an interesting array of talent here to talk about this. Of course, I'm Troy. Of course, you guys are familiar with me if you follow Previews World. But then on top of that, Joaquin does his own channel, Mystical Green Beanie, where he unpacks superhero topics as well, in addition to movies and video games as well. Derek Scarzella has his Action A Go Go website, which is focused primarily on action films. And then we have filmmaker Joe Carabeo, who is he's also a big Batman fan, I want to point out, but he's also a filmmaker. And then we have Patrick Michael Strange, who's also a filmmaker, but he also has his comic book nerd credentials as well. So I kind of build this as filmmakers versus comic book nerds, but really it's kind of like there's layers here, right? There's like everyone kind of has their feet in like the different realms that apply to this conversation.
Well, let's not forget, I also write comics too.
Hey,
comics, absolutely. Shout out to Black Magic Tales, and we're going to get to all the shout outs when we're done here. But first, we want to dive into the Zack Snyder Cut of Justice League, because before we give you guys a chance to shout out all your credentials, people need to know whether or not they love you or hate you based off of what you say.
Oh shit!
Oh crap! Okay, it's all good. Whatever. So let's just dive into it, guys. We got an hour here. Let's do it. Instead of stating the obvious, changes out the gate, because everybody already knows about Joss Whedon and then Zack Snyder and all this other stuff, right? And we know that there are differences, right? I mean, this movie went from a 2-hour movie to a 4-hour movie, right? So clearly there's differences here, right? So instead of stating the obvious differences, I want to know if the differences in this version gave you a different emotional response than the previous film. So I'm just going to go around here, and I'm start with you, Joaquin, because you're the king of hot takes according to Ashton. Let's hear what you got to say about this.
King of hot takes. Well, that's let's see if I can live up to that mythic ideal. So better, definitely better. I definitely like this cut of the film better. Although, and I've talked to you about this off camera, but I just don't like Joss Whedon personally. Not like as a dude, like I don't know the man personally, but like just his artistic sensibilities. I've never been a Joss Whedon fan. I think like Age of Ultron is the closest I've ever gotten to liking any of his stuff.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, just like I'm not a big Joss Whedon guy. So when he got called in to do the reshoots, I was like, oh, obviously they're bringing him in because he made the Avengers, and like Warner Brothers wants that Avengers money. So I saw that movie the first time in theaters. I was like in such denial. I was like, yeah, no, it's great. It's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. It took me like 5 months to realize, yeah, no, that movie's terrible.
What, the Avengers?
No. Justice League. When when
Justice
Joss
League,
Whedon
okay.
reshot it, I was like in denial. Like, no, it's not as bad. It's not as bad as it could be. And I was like, yeah, no, it's bad. It's really bad. And weird. But yeah, no, I much prefer this. I'm also like I like Zack Snyder. I'm a Zack Snyder movie fan. He hasn't made a movie that I don't like. I mean, I have problems with Watchmen, but I'm also in the minority of Zack Snyder fans and just people who have problems with Watchmen. But yeah, no, this is very much a Zack Snyder movie, and it's very much what I've always wanted from a Zack Snyder style Justice League, and everything that I've really kind of wanted from a Justice League movie. And we'll talk about that eventually down the line. But yeah, this was just kind of a film that I really liked. This is everything that I've wanted.
So you're telling me, you said you have seen every Zack Snyder movie he's ever made. So you saw that Owl movie he made, The Legend of the Guardians?
Legend of Cthulhu? What?
Well, yeah, Guardians
Owls of Cthulhu.
Did you see that one too?
I saw it in theaters. Yeah.
Oh wow, in theaters. Wow. Okay, that's
Yeah.
I bet that was
I
amazing.
I was like 12 or 13. So like,
Oh man, that's an old thing.
Now,
Now the whole room is about to turn on you. And be like,
About to say. I didn't know you let kids in this stream. What's going on?
What about you, Derek? Did you have a different emotional response to this movie as opposed to the 2017 version?
Yes.
Mhm.
I remember watching the first film, saw it with my family, and I was just like, oh, I knew it was going to be bad. It was a question of how bad, because when you hear about a movie being taken over by another director, no matter who the director is, like I don't have any problems with Josh Whedon, in terms of the work he's done. Like I liked Serenity, which was the Firefly movie. I never watched his TV shows. I thought Avengers was perfect. Age of Ultron was fine. But yeah, the first Justice League was just, the first time they released it was just a big mess. You could tell it felt disjointed, but this was the complete opposite experience. Like before, when I watched Justice League, I was like, ew. But this time I was like, oh, damn. Like what there. But it's weird because it was the same stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and I was actually going to write an article about this, but I might as well let the cat out of the bag. It just really showed the power of editing.
Yes.
And that editing just completely changed the experience for me. And, I've never experienced that much of a change from a director's cut, like where I'm watching the same thing and have a completely different emotional reaction. So I'm just going to say, yes, this is a very good movie, and I'm glad they did it.
All right. Okay. What about you, Patrick? What's your takeaway?
All right. First off, I just want to say my opinion doesn't reflect the Nerds of Color or the NRW. Because I don't know if y'all know Keith Chow. Shout out to my boy Keith. He's the man, the main man behind the Nerds of Color. Much love to him, and he's a big DC guy. For me, I thought it was a quick hot take. I didn't really like the first one, the Joss Whedon version. So to see Zack Snyder have his true vision finally put out there, I'm happy for the fans that helped make it happen. But to me, it was just a mediocre screenplay from the first one, even though it was Joss Whedon's, take on it, and then, changed up for Zack's true vision. It was an all right movie. It wasn't a great movie. So that's just my quick hot take, but I'll break it down even further later on with everybody else.
And, Patrick, I'm a co-sign with you on that. Like, I'm not going to delve too much into that just yet, but I feel you on that. What about you, Joe? What did you have a different emotional response to this version as opposed to the second version?
So to me, this is actually pretty historic. Like me running the Awesome Con Short Film Festival and just having many film festivals in my belt and having experience judging films, and there's no actual way logistically, even the Oscars try to do it, there's no way to be like, this is the best film. It's physically impossible until you have one film that two people try to do. That is you can actually logistically say like, okay, this is potentially better because you're both essentially trying to do the same exact thing. And this is what we have is the Justice League. Two people made the same film. We can now be like, we like this one better. It's also sort of like it's no secret, like me as a filmmaker, one of my inspirations growing up was Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Joss Whedon. That's ingrained in how I make a lot of things I do, especially with, now Jane Espenson as well. But when I watched the 2017 one, mentally, I was already tainted. Okay. This was also going after Man of Steel. Everyone is already filtering my head with a lot of hate. The internet was filling my brain. I didn't understand this, but these emotions carry with you with the next film. Now it feels like the film has to work even harder. There's no clear, you know what I mean? If you have this thing like, oh, now you have to top this, you have to top this, it's hard for any filmmaker to sort of beat those expectations. But going into the first Justice League, knowing it was taken over, knowing it was a mishmash, it was already doomed to begin with. I was like, I could already, as a filmmaker, I can see the split, I can see the lack of focus. And, when I was done watching it, I felt like, yep, that's what it was. It was let's get this money. Let's get this money. Let's get this money as fast as we can. You know what I mean? Not saying, they got money. That's the whole point of show business. They got money. But this was also unique because this, to me, with the Snyder Cut, we actually have the ability to control how fast and how slow we want to watch it. It's more like a comic book. You can pick it up and read it per chapter and enjoy it our speed. We can rewind it. If we miss something, we can rewind it, whatever we really do. So this almost has an advantage over sitting in the theater. So with that experience, even though I did sit 4 hours all the way through, I did it Hollywood style. Like I did movie theater style. I got my snacks, I got my cheese and all that stuff. And honestly, I had a pretty damn good experience watching this. I don't know if it was good or bad because my brain doesn't know what that means anymore when it comes to this movie. I can say that I enjoyed this more. I enjoyed this more than the other one because I don't know. It felt good because also from a filmmaker's perspective to say like, hey man, Zach was able to, he did a miracle. Someone let him finish his film. They gave him more money to finish his film. For that, I was so happy just to do that. Right. After that, it's just sort of gravy. It's sort of like, cool, this stuff makes sense. It's like the movie makes sense to a degree. So
now, it's and I'm glad you brought up the importance of that because that's something I did want to address. Is like, look, I'm definitely a Marvel guy. I won't deny that, but I love comic books in general, and so I guess I say all that to say that like my love of Marvel is different than like my love of DC, I guess. And but at the same time, I'm like, I'm steeped in this stuff. Like I love it. But at the same time, like I'm also a film guy, and I get the impression that like it's really cool to see an artistic vision being restored. You know what I mean? Like that was the big thing that like even I, who was sort of like, I didn't like the 2017 Justice League, but I also understood that it had problems, so I kind of didn't expect much going in. It was more like a morbid curiosity when I went to go see the theater. And so I appreciate and I find it, like I said, it's a miracle that Zack Snyder was able to do this in the first place. Because, I mean, you could talk about Richard Lester, like, Superman 2 and Richard Donner and all this other stuff. It's rare, and so that in itself is historical.
I mean, when has that ever happened? Has that ever happened? The studio, only today you could do that. It only can happen right now.
I could only, just to interject real quick, I could only compare it to all the different cuts of Blade Runner. All the director's cuts. But this is probably the greatest director's cut of all time. Like, and I really mean that. Like, I can't think of a movie that changed so much. Apart from Blade Runner, like the original cut of Blade Runner famously was like this joy. Well, it wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't director's vision. There was, talking over the film, narration that was in there. The director's cut got rid of all that. But yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So yeah, it's really interesting. So what's going on? What's up, Joaquin? You want to chime in? What's up?
Hold up. Okay. I'll keep it a buck with y'all. I am a Zack Snyder simp. I am part of that like weird toxic cult on Twitter. Like I love Zack. I love me some Zack Snyder, and I love this movie. You really think this is the best director's cut? Like better than Blade Runner?
Well, I didn't say that. I don't know what the-
I mean, I would go out on a limb. I mean, real quick, I can't think of any other movie that's changed so drastically that I've liked so much. Going from what was released in theaters, which was, I mean, it wasn't a good movie. Like call a spade a spade. There was good elements of it, but this, like, I mean, I think it says something that it took him 4.5 hours to tell a good story. I think that's sort of telling, though. Like he needed that much room to really develop a Justice League film. And I think that speaks a lot to what Marvel was able to do with 10 movies before whatever the number was before they came to Avengers, which I thought was a perfect movie in a sense. But yeah, I'd go along and say this is the greatest director's cut of a film ever.
Well, even Zach says it's not a director's cut; it's just his cut.
Yeah,
right. You can argue that the 2017 version is the director's cut. This is actually the movie.
But also, I feel like the length of the film. I guarantee you this: if the world was a little better and this situation was happening, and Warner Brothers was like, "Hey, Zach, can you bring it down to at least 3? You can cut that down to 3." You know what I mean? If you really, really need to. But the thing is, though, the market knows we're at home.
Yeah.
What are we complaining about? Right?
Exactly.
Pause it.
I had that whole thing when I was when I watched it the second time, but I watched it twice this week. Wow. And I was supposed to have like my review up for it yesterday, but time management skills are not my thing. I say in my review for it that I think you can definitely cut 40 minutes out of this movie, because I really like this film, but I think this definitely could have been a 3-hour movie that could have been put in theaters. Like, I think if we're just gonna get right into it, I think you can cut out the last 10 minutes. That whole thing where like the Norwegian chick is like sniffing Aquaman's sweater. She's like, like, okay, you can cut that out.
That was a little weird. That was a little weird.
Let me actually present this to you guys, actually, because this was going to be my next question. And Joaquin kind of lobbed it up for me. I want to know what worked for you and what didn't. Like, I can tell you personally, this movie does a couple of things that, as a comic fan, I personally feel I object to. I'll be honest with you. Number one is on that list is actually Batman's an idiot. And this is an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
I feel like you always think
I've talked about this on Joe's podcast before. Like the DC movies, like they swing wildly when it comes to how they treat Batman. It's like he's either a mass murderer or a moron. And in this particular one, and I want to be clear, after Batman versus Superman, I was like, I want Ben Affleck as Batman forever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was completely, totally sold on him. But I get the impression that when I was watching this, I got the impression that Ben Affleck was phoning it in a little bit. The other thing that I did not like was it does the thing that I think the argument against Superman, it kind of made it clear. It kind of almost exposed the argument against Superman, which is that people always say Superman's too powerful and that's why he's not interesting. And I kind of feel like this movie leaned too hard on Superman being too powerful. I mean, that's kind of the catalyst for the second hour. You know what I mean? The second half of the film is he's powerful. We need him. You know what I mean? And so it kind of lends itself to that argument, which I'm sort of like, there's so many other things that you could say about Superman that makes it interesting. But this kind of I'll give it over to you guys. But like, it just that those things in particular kind of stood out. I think the Cyborg stuff is good. I think it's interesting. I'm not in love with Cyborg as a character. I never have been. So ultimately, it was like, okay, sure, fine. But it was much better than what was in the original movie. Yeah. But Patrick, I'll fork it over to you first. Like, what worked with you? What worked for you? And what didn't?
Ah, man. What worked for me was with finally getting that Cyborg story that we've heard about, and that Ray Fisher, campaign to, as well, for this to come out as well. So I'm happy for that. That worked for me. What didn't work was the overindulgence. I think to me was the operative word when we did our review with the NRW, is it was just very overindulgent with slow-mo just out of nowhere for no reason. There's so much. And not that I'm not a Marvel stan. I'm not. I want superheroes to succeed. I echo everything you said, Troy, about being a nerd. We're celebrating as a nerd. We get our superheroes on the screen.
Yeah.
But you had to have the inevitable comparisons because this came out last week, the same time that Falcon and Winter Soldier came out. So as a nerd fan, loving both Marvel and DC, but for me more so Marvel, what they did in 46 minutes with the Falcon and Winter Soldier in regards to making you feel these characters, I felt really nothing for the Justice League. And it took 6 hours, 4 hours, however long it was, and still didn't feel anything. And that's one of my biggest things with the Justice League film is like, I felt nothing. I'm curious what Momoa smells like. But
are we all?
Yeah, I wanted it to just be more. It is better than the Whedon version, but still, it's not that great. And I blame the screenplay. I don't blame the actors. I'm not mad at the time. One of the jokes I made when I did our review was like I fell asleep because it's just so long and just dragged out. But at the same time, I want content because I'm a nerd. And where are we going? We have nothing to do, so it's just more content for us to enjoy. But at the same time, yeah, I didn't endear to the characters with all that extra space that you could have gave me more, some more substance. I didn't get substance. So I don't know if I was rambling there. Yeah,
I think I feel like the problems with the 2017 movie are still kind of present in that script. But like I'm curious. Let's ask the Snyder stand up here, Joaquin. What worked for you? What did?
So like obviously the runtime was a big thing that like I think you could cut this down to a 3-hour movie. But I guess I'll say this as a comic book fan first and foremost. I grew up appreciating both Marvel and DC. Like equally, like just seeing them as two different things. Like I don't think one is necessarily better than the other inherently. I just see one is cake and one is pie. Yeah. My fat ass likes both cake and pie, so like I like both Marvel and DC. I guess this movie, one of the big things that I really liked about it was it highlighted the difference between Marvel and DC, and that DC is built on myth and legend. It's everything is grand, everything is operatic. It's a melodrama. In fact, the big thing that really struck a chord with me when watching this movie, and really when watching Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, was, I'm like watching a comic book play out on screen. Like I'm watching like just unadulterated DC comics happen. Like it's all like one of the biggest criticisms I hear about these movies is like it's grand, it's operatic, and you can't really relate to the characters so much. But I mean, it's Jason and the Argonauts, you know. It's Helen of Troy, you know. It's the tale of Achilles. It's Syphilis or not syphilis. But it's
get it.
You know, like Man of Steel is like a weird pulp science fiction like legend film. Batman v Superman is like a legend film where like you have one icon versus another, and this is very much like a it's Lord of the Rings, and I've never seen Lord of the Rings because I just don't care about sword and sorcery that much. I'm sorry, guys, but one of my buddies who I was talking to about this movie was he said it's very much like Return of the King, and I was like, okay, cool. Don't know what that means, but sweet. He said, yeah, it's very much that. It's like Final Crisis. I told Troy this earlier. Like watching this movie gave me flashbacks to reading Final Crisis as a little kid, and in fact, I'd go as far to say that this movie is the Final Crisis of comic book movies, in the sense that it's just the creator with no editorial mandates, just swinging for the fences. Just like, do you want to see like Superman resurrected by a mother box and Cyborg like becoming weird Skynet, Dr. Manhattan, and the Flash reversing time, and like it's the DC heroes fighting the new gods of Apocalypse. Like it's very over the top, and it's just this creator taking these like larger than life concepts and telling a story with them. And I mean, I have the same problems with this movie that I have with Final Crisis. It's very long. Part of it makes no goddamn sense whatsoever, but just there's something mythic about it and something just kind of pure and interesting about it, where it's that idea of like, yeah, we're just taking, and that's the thing with DC characters versus Marvel characters. DC characters are very much myth and legends, and Marvel characters are just subverting the tropes of myth and legend. Even down to like a comic book level, Marvel characters are always about, like taking the piss out of the superhero concept. So you kind of like relate to it more.
No, I think your cake and pie analogy actually, that actually had, no pun intended, it actually had layers to it for that exact reason.
But yeah, no, I like this movie a lot. It felt like the DC movie that I've always wanted to see since I was a little kid, and I got it. And yeah, that's all I got to say.
So actually here, I want to address something real quick. Angela C. Phillips Mills is like, why aren't there any women on this panel? Well, now there are, Angela. So, you know what, Angela? Make your comment. Go off. I'll put it up on the screen when you're ready to respond, okay? All right. Who else we got? Derek. Well, yeah, let me know. What worked for you, what didn't?
Well, I mean, I'm actually going to piggyback off what Patrick said a little bit. Like the music video-ness of it. That's like what you said, the slow motion. I call it the music video phenomenon. And I mean, it worked in this movie. It didn't throw me off too much. But like you said, that self-indulgence of it, that's when I was like, does it need to be slow-mo? Like it just felt a little over the top sort of thing. Maybe trying to add a bit of religiosity, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't a total, buzzkill. But I didn't have a problem with Batman. Just to counter your point, Troy. Like I thought Batman was fine, and it was sort of good that he took a step back and he was like sort of pushing the plot forward and acting like the glue for the story. Whereas the last movie, which I liked, I thought Superman versus Batman was fine, or excuse me, Batman versus Superman was fine. But yeah, I thought the weakest point to sort of go with Mr. Beanie here was Superman, and just like the original, like the whole mother box thing, the bringing him back to life, and then he just sort of shows up at the end and whoops the tar out of Steppenwolf with seemingly really easy, whereas in the other movies they took the effort to make him weaker than he usually is. I mean, but I liked the movie so much overall. It wasn't a total buzzkill for me, but to me those are the weakest parts of it. Like, and again to piggyback off what you're saying, it's sort of that goofy DC-ness that you don't really get in Marvel. Like you just have Thor's hammer and that's it. You don't go too much into the details, but the mother box and them working together, like. They had to create so much mythology here from scratch, and some of it was like it's got to touch the water. Like, why did I don't know? I could come up with other ideas for the whole thing, but those are the things that were just a bit of a drag for me. But again, nothing to kill the overall experience in general.
What about you, Joe? What worked for you? What didn't work for you?
Well, the obvious thing, and this is always a criticism I have over any superhero movie, is I just want to get done with the origin story. like in all truth, man, and in all truth, I'm just like, that's why I didn't like Spider-Man 1, because I want to get to Spider-Man 2. It sucks we have to go spend 4 hours to potentially get to a Justice League 2, which we can see them work as a team maybe, but that's what, when you guys mentioned like Final Crisis with Grant Morrison's talking about, that's why we want to see Justice League. We want to see them group together and bash up. Like cut to that. You know what I mean? We know they're going to get to become a team. But also one thing that I'm sort of always just tired of too, and this is the same thing with comics, and it's the same thing with the Marvel movies now too, and the same thing with anything. Now everything is just getting to be just movies just are coming together for one big event movie, and comics are just a big event thing. And I'm just like, well, you haven't even gotten better at telling the the single story yet. It's like,
and they condensed a lot into like 3 films. So yeah.
I mean, but the thing is though, the overall, I mean, that's a normal thing. That's just my heart speaking. I mean, I remember reading when Zack Snyder was telling Junkie XL how to do the score. He's like, "Where should I go?" He's like, "Dude, just go as bombastic and as big as you want to go."
Yeah.
And so that theory, you know, I guess Warner Brothers was just letting Zack Snyder just do whatever the hell he wants to do, make it as gory and as hard R as he wants to do. And I feel like that's like, who gets that chance? Of course he's gonna go behead millions of people. If I bet we'd have some nudity in there too, man. It's one of those things where it's like he's just, you know, he's serving his own god. I mean, and that's why it's Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that's why he's the one who did all the promotion. It's his whole entire vision. Now, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not saying it's bad, because I look at this, and for some reason I look at this movie and I look at 300, and I say this is the director who did 300, more or less, not like Man of Steel, but this. I see those splash pages. You know what I mean? I see that.
Oh yeah,
the violence, and it's not a bad thing, because let him do what he wants, man. I didn't feel bad afterwards.
I was, you know, I actually was a little disappointed in the Amazon scene, and like this is one of those weird things where, like you mentioned earlier, like you can cut it down to 3 hours. I feel like, and like Joe knows how this works. Like it's not just about removing scenes from a movie; it's also about trimming little like seconds here and there from like moments. You know what I mean? And I remember watching the 2017 film, and the bit where Steppenwolf comes down to Themyscira and starts wrecking it shop with the Amazons, and I'm like, I know Zack Snyder directed this scene. Like it just had that level of intensity. It had that style to it, and honestly, it was probably the best scene out of that 2017 movie for me personally. But I also noticed that they clipped bits and pieces out of the 2017 version to make it a little more compact. And this version had more to it, like more little bits here and there that I think caused the scene to feel a little long in the tooth and like a little too flashy. Like there was a lot of like extra moments of like Amazon sliding across the floor, which was kind of like a little weird for me. Like, small stuff like that. Joe mentioned Joe mentioned the rating. I actually want to know, was the R rating justified, do you guys think, based off of this version? And I will start with Patrick.
I actually, thinking about it, I don't recall it really being necessary for this. I guess it was. This was a R. It was an R on this, right? It seemed the same to me. It seemed the same to me, even though it was longer. But the rating wise, I don't recall curse words. There was, I guess, a little bit more graphic violence compared to the original. Yeah, it just seemed everything seemed the same for me. That I don't see the difference. But that's maybe because I'm older and words are in my vernacular very frequent. So maybe that's why I didn't notice.
That's why you didn't notice it.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember Cyborg dropping an F-bomb when Wonder Woman's like, Wonder Woman's like, you know, we got to save the world. He's like, F the world, which I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Batman drops an F-bomb too.
Yeah, there are 2 F-bombs in the movie, and
that was a big one with Cyborg.
Yeah. I think the MPAA says you can have only one for it to keep a PG-13 rating, but any more than one is rated R.
Yeah,
and I think it has to do with the act versus like, you know, you're just like an exclamation. I think that's how it works.
I think Zack Snyder just wanted to push it over the edge. With it and just like whatever.
That's actually one thing that doesn't work for me is cursing in this movie. Like I feel like you don't need what?
Not with the league, man.
This world isn't our world. You don't need to use these bad words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
really. What about you, Derek? Was the R rating justified?
I mean, not really. Like I watched it with my daughter, so like maybe I'm a bad parent. But they like slipped that stuff through. I thought it was a bit unnecessary, like Joe said. Like I like you don't need Batman and Cyborg to say that stuff. But besides that, I didn't. Maybe I'm just so used to action movies. No level of violence is really gonna push me over the edge anymore. I'm so calloused about it. Yeah. But like I no spoilers, but I thought like the end was like one of the best parts where they had one pretty intense, you know, moment where they ended a bad guy, and I thought that was great.
Probably chop his head off. Yeah.
Are we doing spoilers? Can I just say
I mean,
it?
we might as well. If you're watching this, you should be aware.
Spoiler alert! When they cut Steppenwolf's head off at the end, and then it ends up at Doomsday's feet, I was like, yes, like that's something you're not going to see in a Marvel movie too, like that level of badassery sort of thing. Like that was heavy metal, and that's when I was like, okay, this is cool. Like next time really for this.
We I think a lot of us know Nakia here. This is our good buddy. Why didn't Darkseid just walk through the boom tube, Steppenwolf's head, and body bounce through? They really neutered Darkseid. So actually, that brings me to my next question: what did you think of the Darkseid pivot? Like the original 2017 movie, like extracts him entirely from the film, except for a few references to him. Joaquin, what did you think of that?
I thought Darkseid was fine. Like, and this is the thing that like I kind of I've had to like get myself over on, not just with movies but with comics. Now that I'm trying to veer myself into making my own content and making like telling stories myself. Sometimes just take the story at its own merit. Like if Darkseid's not supposed to show up yet, well, Darkseid's not supposed to show up yet. He's the cliffhanger villain for like later stuff. Yeah. But also like when they show the future, the nightmare future where Darkseid shows up and wins, he does wreck everything. he does kind of destroy the world. And there's that whole like stinger where Darkseid's talking to Desaad and he says, "We're gonna ready the old ways. We're gonna start the Armada and go there ourselves and bring everybody. We're bringing the whole crew." Like Darkseid saw what the Justice League did to Steppenwolf and to the Parademons, and he said, "All right, I'm not going to show up now. I'm going to bring everybody to you because I see what I'm working with."
Well, you know Joaquin. You know Joaquin who did that? Thanos. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
Well, you know who Thanos is based on.
I was about to say, like, if you actually know comic book history, like Marvel really did DC dirty because they not only did they steal their villain, they made $22 billion off that villain.
Yeah.
Like they broke it, they stuck it in and broke it off with Thanos.
What about you, Patrick? Was the Darkseid pivot, did it work for you? Did it not work for you?
It was okay. It gave us a glimpse at what a possible 2 would be if they were to give him more. Might as well throw that in there. But yeah, if you could chop my son's head off, like it was brought up, Nakia said, it kind of, I feel what Nakia was saying, like, you're just going to chop my son's head off and I'm just going to stand right here and be all right with that. Like, no. There's actually another event that happened that I want to bring up once we're done with this one that reminded me as well that maybe shouldn't have been there, but I'll leave that for a cliffhanger so everybody can finish this question.
What about you, Joe? Did you mind? I know I'm saying Darkseid. I know some people say Darkseid. Like I'm old school. I've been saying Darkseid since I was a kid, so whatever. But Joe, did you appreciate that Darkseid pivot?
Well, I do appreciate finally seeing I'll say Darkseid too. I do appreciate seeing Darkseid there. And here's one thing. I mean, they just said why did Darkseid like step into the boom tube and then fight, and I'd like to as a villain mindset, as a ruler mindset, you're not the first person that steps in the battlefield.
I mean, I'll give you that.
You set up a son, yo. If the king dies, the rest of the game's over. Yeah, Darkseid. Is it Darkseid? What?
It's Darkseid.
I say side. I'm with Derek.
It don't matter. I think it's Rachel Ghul Ra's al Ghul stuff.
Oh yeah.
Ra's al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul. I remember the first time I heard Batman Begins and they said Ra's. I was like,
yeah. In animated series, my blood. And when they said Ra's, I didn't understand that at all.
Did they say Ra's in the animated series?
No,
they said Raish in the animated series.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right.
And also, Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams will all, when Denny O'Neil was alive, they would often say it differently. Like Denny O'Neil would say Ra's al Ghul, and Neil Adams would say Ra's al Ghul. So it's like the creators can't figure out what it is. Well, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Well, I would have said Thanos instead of Thanos.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Hey, in Superman the animated series, let's think about this too. They sort of did that same exact storyline. They sent Darkseid sent a pawn to Earth to test the waters and then Darkseid came later on.
He sent Steppenwolf.
Yeah, he sent
Steppenwolf. Yeah.
So if we're trying to think who did it first, Bruce Timm for the win again.
Yeah. For the love of me, I don't know why they just don't let Bruce Timm and Paul Dini write these movies, but whatever.
I mean,
there's a hierarchy.
Yeah,
there's a hierarchy, of course.
And also, it's like it's two different mediums. I wouldn't expect that an animation director can run like a film set to that medium. I mean, maybe Brad Bird tried.
Well, I wouldn't even go for directing. Just let them write the script. Like, you know what I mean?
There wouldn't be much. I don't think there'd be much difference, especially if you have Bruce Timm at the helm, because I remember when Man of Steel came out, everyone was like, Superman killed General Zod, despite the fact that Superman has literally killed General Zod every time up until you get to like For Tomorrow by Brian Azzarello and Jim Lee.
Good point.
But like, okay, Superman killed General Zod, that's a big deal. But I remember everyone was freaking out about that. And someone said, and people were like clamoring, like, yeah, this is why you should get Bruce Timm to do it, because Bruce Timm understands these characters. First interview that Bruce Timm does for Man of Steel, he says, yeah, that's what I wanted to do with that's what I wanted to do in Justice League Unlimited. It was like, okay, so if Bruce Timm is gonna say the exact same thing and write the exact same thing, well then I don't think there's gonna be much of a difference. Also, I just seeing some of the stuff that Snyder said about the DC universe and like what he wanted to do with Justice League 2 and 3 and how he talks about Justice League, I feel like Zack Snyder is one of those Hollywood guys when he says, I looked at the source material. What that really translates to is I watched the cartoons and I just want to make like movie versions of the cartoons because that whole thing with like the scrap plan that everyone was talking about where Bruce Wayne impregnates Lois Lane and like kind of cucks Superman, that's in the animated series. Barry Allen being like discount Spider-Man with ADD, that's also in the animated series.
Are you serious? I don't remember that. That's funny.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
a lot of this.
That's how that World's Finest movie. That's the plot of that World's Finest movie.
Another thing. One thing I did love that they did do. They hinted at the movie that I love that they did in the Justice League. It might have been normal or Justice League Unlimited. Was they sort of hinted at the Diana and Bruce Wayne, the Batman and Wonder Woman's chemistry. I was like, oh man, that was magic. Just a hand touch.
Although I wanted to say something about that. Now that you brought Batman up, I want to counter Troy a little bit, where you said that you didn't like Batman in this movie. I gotta disagree. I actually quite liked Batman in this movie. I quite like Batman more in this than I have in anything that DC has put out for a long time, because one of the big things that I kind of like about Batman as a character is that he is a guy. He's the most dangerous man in the world, but like he is still just a guy. Yeah. And something that I kind of miss about I don't have it on me, but like I have like one of those Bronze Age Justice League omnibuy. I miss when Batman was just a guy who was really competent, who stood shoulder to shoulder with the Justice League, but he still recognized them as peers, and the Justice League recognized him as peers. Like he didn't talk down to them. He wasn't like, well, here's how we're gonna do things because I'm Batman and I'm cool and DC loves me more than everyone else in this universe. I like how Batman was just he was talking to the Justice League like they were on his level. Yeah, and he was humble, and that's something that you just don't see anymore because there's so much Batwank at DC. So
no, just to clarify, like I actually the initial action sequence where they're in the Gotham Harbor. And like, Wonder Woman is marching forward, and Flash is marching forward, and everybody's kind of doing their thing, and Batman's kind of like bringing up the rear. When I was watching it for the first time, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. They're not putting Batman at the forefront because I kind of assumed that would be the default. And so I was like, they're kind of showing that Batman's being outclassed here. And I was like, that's cool. I like that. But it wasn't until like the second half of the movie when, they go to, was it like Chernobyl or something they went to? And like started fighting like Steppenwolf. I realized like, oh no, this isn't intentional. They just don't know what to do with that in this case. At least that was my takeaway from it.
Well, I mean,
So,
I thought, well, just to piggyback off that, I thought that was a bit confusing too. Like, wait a minute, you just established Batman's the weakest one. He knows he's the weakest one, but I know his car is awesome, but you know, it's not super strength or invulnerability. And also, just to close the loop on one thing, I'm desperate to say, I like Darkseid in the movie because it gave Steppenwolf actual motivation.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
it tied everything a lot more together. And this version of Steppenwolf, I thought, was 10 times better than
Oh,
what they had
yeah.
before. Because in the Weed movie, he just shows up, and it's like, who is this guy? Who cares? But he's referring to not Doomsday, God, Darkseid. He's
The great villain.
you know, and he's looking up to Darkseid, which is the same thing that Thanos did in the Marvel films. Like, it gave him motivation. It fleshed out the character. So that's all. I was desperate to just say that before this was over.
No, that's okay. We got another question here I want to jump into real quick. This is from Bosnia in 09. Do you guys think there will be a sequel to this movie, or will they just reboot the DC movieverse? I mean, I can tell you right now, I'm pretty certain that there was an interview I think with Variety with the head of DC, and like, the head of Warner, I guess, and she was like, nope, this is it.
No, so, I think it's a dude who got on record and was like, he's the CEO of the Warner Media, and he said, this is it, this is done. And they've already got a new Batman movie in the till.
Yeah,
right. The Robert Pattinson Batman film. God knows what they're going to do with it at this point. But I just know the news because I was very upset. Like, you finally make a good movie after 10 or 8 years of trying, and it's like, nah, you're done. Yeah. Now we're going to screw it up all over again with
Warner Media's Ann Sarnoff. So yeah, it's a woman actually. Yeah, like she's the head of she's the head of handling. She's the head of Warner Media, but she's also the person who signs off on this DC stuff right now. So her and Jim Lee actually.
Well, you know, Warner Brothers has to go in a new direction after people finally are actually talking about how much they like the Justice League and how much they like DC. We have to do avant-garde movies like Matt Reeves' Batman and Black Superman. You guys are gonna like that new stuff, right? Even though
here's the thing, right? Like, so actually, this is kind of the interesting thing that she said in that interview, was that like she is very much focused on, to your point, she's very much focused on giving these characters over to directors and directors with a vision. It actually kind of brings me to my next question, because the big argument with Marvel is there is no visionaries, which I'll tell you right now, I feel like that's absolutely false. But I know for the longest time, the criticism was that all the Marvel movies were samey because like the directors weren't given the reins to actually like express themselves properly. And so it got me thinking here, do you think with the Justice League movie, the one that we just got, do you feel like this is a fully realized vision based off of everything Zack Snyder has laid out thus far? And I'll let you go first, Patrick. What do you think?
You said me? Yeah, I think so. It was Zach's project from the jump off. He got to do his thing with it, which I think is part of the problem. I'm with you on that. I wanted to just note, because I'm running out of time for myself for another interview I have to do. Is one of my biggest problems was the Martian Manhunter. I'm a huge fan of Martian Manhunter. They kind of threw him in there, and to me it kind of depowered him, because if you're the freaking Martian Manhunter, you should be, fighting with these heroes. Instead, he was just like, it made him look like a punk, like he was too scared to help, defend the world, and that saddened me because I'm a fan of Martian Manhunter. So
I think that was my big
SNYDER cut for me.
Mm-hmm. No, I think my big thing actually is it feels. I mean, I feel like it's not quite consistent with Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, and I think that's like story wise, but also kind of visually, which I kind of found surprising. Like, I feel like there clearly was a mandate to kind of lighten it up, and then of course with the 2017 movie, they took that like to another level, but Snyder had already gotten that mandate, and you kind of see that with this film. And so visually it's not the same, but I understand why. But I also kind of feel like story-wise, there's a lot of contradictions between this and Man of Steel, especially what Podcast says in that movie versus this movie and all this other stuff. But what about you, Joe? Like, do you think this feels fully realized? Like, this feels like a vision?
So from a filmmaker standpoint, I actually I don't feel bad for Zack Snyder because he still got this opportunity, but I feel bad on almost a creative standpoint because as a creative, the ideas you had 10 years ago that you had to flesh out, you would absolutely do it different if you had to redo it now, you know? And now he was put to the task of having to make something better that he knew probably already had flaws in it. So can you imagine going into a movie that people want to see and he's probably just like, oh, I wish I did this, but now you can't. So it's just making that as best as he can for the fans. So with that idea, he did as boisterous as he possibly can. But I know probably just as a creative, we all have those projects in which we know, like, man, if I had a chance, I'd redo this or do this better if I could, and I guarantee he fought for it, but there's only so much that he could do,
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like,
clarify what Carlos Almonte was saying, for me to do the next Aquaman, I would love to do Plastic Man. I want to do the Plastic Man movie. That seems crazy enough for me. Either that or Batman Beyond, but Batman Beyond might be taken. So
release the Carlos cut.
What about you, Derek? Do you think this feels fully realized ultimately?
You know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say yes. I mean, it was so much movie, and I mean, start to understand why Ray Fisher must have been so upset with Josh Whedon and everything else. Like, how much of his stuff must have been cut out of that original version, the version they released. But yeah, I think that between the development of the characters and where we saw the story go, it sucks that it ended on the cliffhanger. But I think we got a taste of it with that long, dream that Batman has at the end, where the Joker's, talking trash on him, and all these other characters are there. And then I agree, like the Martian Manhunter thing was a bit confusing. Like, was he always the Martian Manhunter? Like, did he just kill that general and take over his life? Like, what's going on there?
No, Martian Manhunter was done right. This is where Martian Manhunter was done right in this story right here. That's how you do it.
DC New Frontier.
Great book.
That.
Yeah.
But
what about you, Joaquin? Like, do you feel like this is fully realized?
Yeah, I don't think Derek was done though, so I'm gonna.
I was just gonna say yes. It's a good send off, and Zack Snyder might be tired with it as well. You never know. He's been working on this for 10 years.
Yeah, I kind of imagine so. Actually. Hey, Patrick, like, I understand that you have to run. Like, we're gonna keep going, but do you want to do a little quick shout out before you dip on us?
Sure. Thank you. Again, thank you, Troy, Previews World. Really appreciate you guys, man. You guys are amazing. Everybody else, man, here. Everybody, all y'all are cool except Joe Carabeo. He's an ass. Anyway, love you, Joe. Thank you again. Kuyapi at the Nerds of Color. Make sure y'all check us out, where we give you pop culture from a POC perspective, as well as at the NRW and at New Release Wednesday, where nerds rule the world. And yeah, that's me, Kuyapi. I'm out of here, man. Thank y'all. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, bud. And we'll have Patrick back on in the near future. We promise. He's going to probably join us for Previews World Weekly down the line. But okay, I'm sorry, Joaquin. Yeah, you were answering the question. Do you feel like this is fully realized? What's your take?
I think it's 90% realized. There's just certain things here that I know because I follow Zack Snyder like a weird religious zealot. But yeah, no, like looking at Man of Steel, Batman movie, Superman, and Justice League is like a trilogy. Alongside Wonder Woman is like the companion. The first Wonder Woman film is a companion piece to this trilogy. I think all of the beats for the most part were hit. I actually disagree with somebody in the chat earlier where they said Zack Snyder doesn't get Superman. I think Zack Snyder, more than anyone right now, the bar is real low. I'm sorry. I try to play nice, but like, I just read that J.J. Abrams script because people want me to review old scripts that never got made. I read the Bendis Superman stuff. Just between comics and even like a lot of animation from like the animated stuff that DC does, I think Zack Snyder gets Superman probably better than most people working on Superman stuff. Between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and here in Justice League, he's just a Deus Ex Machina. But I think, given the scenes that Superman has, it's very much fulfilling that character arc of fully accepting that he is as much the last son of Krypton as he is the protector and son of Earth. So I think in regards to that, it is as fulfilled as it possibly can be given the constraints that he has, because there were constraints. Martian Manhunter was not supposed to be in this movie, apparently. That was be John Stewart, Green Lantern. But the studio said no. So there were still some constraints here and there. But yeah, I think this is like Joe said, you're never going to see this in Hollywood ever again. And if you do, well, then this breaks open the floodgates for like a whole new movie industry. So yeah, for better or worse, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
No, I think for me personally, like the fully realized part, I do think there's holes, right? And I think that, to Joe's point, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Snyder came back in on this like later in the game to complete what he had already set up. But also you have Warner Brothers saying like, we don't want to touch that, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. So there's still some restraints on him, despite the fact that the movie's 4 hours, right? But I felt like the part that was fully realized is that a theme of unity. Like that's something that this movie kind of hits on, and it kind of brings Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Justice League all together under one theme. You know, like I feel like that part was kind of impressive in terms of like you watch Man of Steel and you know Superman's, I won't say he's out for self, but Superman's definitely struggling with what he wants versus what the world wants. You know what I mean? And then Batman vs Superman is very much about what the world wants from Superman, you know, and what Superman wants himself. And I think he expresses that actually in that movie. And so this film is more along the lines of those two wants coming together. So I thought that was actually pretty impressive. But I still had issues with like, you know, the overall, I guess, message or the holes in the story when you look at the other films and you connect them to this film. So we're almost done here. We're probably going to run a little bit over the hour here. But
are you guys going to watch the what is Justice League Gray that just came out?
Did it just come out? Did it actually come out?
I saw. Just got I got an Instagram message that it got released.
Yeah.
Why
no,
not?
I think this movie's colored perfectly. No, Zach.
Well, that's Zach wanted it to be in black and white too, didn't he? He'd like the.
Yeah,
he
Jeremy said that.
watch it then.
He said
That's
so.
gotta
Like
be
I
the-
know earlier, he said he was like basing this movie off of like Seven Samurai, which I haven't seen, so I don't want to speak to that. But I think he was just like, yeah, Seven Samurai's in black and white. Let's do Justice League in black and white.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy, you do you.
So actually, you know, so the irony here is actually the funny thing about it, because I saw that Seven Samurai thing. He's liking his movie to Seven Samurai. The funny thing is, Joss Whedon likened the Avengers to the Magnificent Seven, which I always kind of thought was kind of. Once I heard Zack Snyder say that, and like after the fact, I was like, that's really interesting that like they're both cribbing from the same concept, and these two movies are definitely related to each other, and they're making superhero movies based off of these concepts. I thought that was kind of hilarious. All right, let's just knock it out right now. Here we go. Greatest superhero movie of all time, because that's what people were saying early on when the reviews were coming in. Joaquin, what do you say? Do you agree?
No, I mean I love it, but it's not. It's not the greatest superhero movie of all time, but I love, like, subjectively I love it. It's probably one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. But no, dude, no, have standards.
What about you? What about you, Scarzella? Greatest superhero movie of all time?
You know what? I don't know. I might have to punt on this one. When I was watching it, when I got to the end, I was like, man, did he really out Avengers? Like, and this might be it. I might have to say yes.
Oh,
wow! All right.
And I don't know. Tentative yes. I might rethink that and write an article about it later. But
what about
yeah,
you, Joe?
go ahead.
Sorry, best superhero movie of all time?
I thought you were going to ask me what is the best superhero movie of all time. I was going to say Blank Man, but
nice.
Classic.
No.
All right, that's fair.
And my problem with that is the same thing I brought up before, because maybe the next movie would have been the greatest one of all time. But we
Right,
have
yeah. I mean, I would have loved to have seen this Mad Max Fury Road version of the Justice League that never got made. Even though I didn't love that closing scene, like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, it would have been interesting to see what they would
two
have
more
done.
movies down the line, though, right? That would have still been 2 more.
Yeah, I think it might have been actually.
So according to Jay Oliva, Justice League 2 would have in like the revised plan they had would have had like it would have like the first 30 minutes would have been like the Justice League going to like New Genesis and like hanging out with like the Green Lantern Corps and the new guys of New Genesis, and then they all die, and then Darkseid takes over, and then you get to the Mad Max Fury Road future, and then Justice League 3 is the Flash reversing time, and then they don't do that, and it's basically just like Avengers Endgame.
Well, they almost that sounds very familiar.
Yeah, I think Jay Oliva, who also did the storyboards for Justice League, the movies, and the DC animated stuff, said that a lot of his ideas for the DCEU was used for what's that movie, Justice League Dark, Apocalypse War.
Okay.
So yeah, there's like a lot of there's a lot of like similarities between those two because same storyboard artists. But yeah.
Okay, interesting.
What I mean, what exactly is the greatest superhero movie of all time? What things do you have to check off to be?
I mean, there's so many of them now, and you know, actually, I'm gonna say we probably don't have time to do this because my battery's about to die, and we're already over an hour. So I'm just gonna go real quick, you guys. Joaquin, where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me everywhere on the internet at Mystical Green Beanie or MG Beanie.
All right, cool. And Derek, where can people find you?
You can find me at Action A Go-Go on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And you can buy my books. Both of my novels are available on Amazon, The Vicious Game and Knuckle Crack Bone. You can search my name, Derek Scarzella, and go check them out.
All right, cool. And Joe, where can people find you?
You can find me at Astray J on Instagram, joecarabeo.com on the World Wide Web. And also one thing, I am directing and producing the Awesome Con Short Film Festival that is taking submissions right now. Go to filmfreeway.com, Awesome Con Short Film Festival. If you're a filmmaker, submit. If you're not a filmmaker, submit. Everyone just submit and do that. And yeah, so Joe Carabeo, just Google me.
Awesome. And I've actually been a judge for that film festival, so yeah, Joe's a good dude, and like they get some interesting picks in there, so for sure. And look, that's it, guys. I'm gonna get out of here before my battery dies and this becomes off. So hey, thanks for joining us for the Zack Snyder conversation. You know, keep the conversation going, although you don't need me to tell you that. And stay tuned to Preview World. You can catch me every week on Preview World Weekly at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, where we talk about everything in the world of comics. Joaquin's been there. Joe will probably be in the future. Patrick will be there in the future. Derek will probably be there in the future. So definitely enjoy that and definitely check that out. And
did we lose him?
Well, that
We
settles
really
that.
did lose him.
Okay.
What do we do now? Are we just stuck?
Release the Troy cut.
trapped on YouTube?
I'm not finished. Release the Troy
Hey,
cut.
can we talk about whatever we want now? And I can actually say Endgame is the greatest superhero movie of all time.
Did we just lose the key to escape? Because he's in control of if it goes live or not, right?
Oh God.
I'm trapped. I can't.
I have to ascend to 5 dimensions to leave this box.
That was fun, guys.
Yeah,
That was a lot of fun.
that was nice.
Did you all watch it like all the way straight through?
Yep.
No,
No.
I did not.
Oh, okay.
What time of day did you watch it?
Well, I watched it. Well, I'm sorry, but I watched it with my family at night. So it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe, because we watched. I forget what we watched. We watched Kong Skull Island before because my daughter wanted to watch that,
Good one.
and I couldn't pass that up. And then we started Justice League, and I think we tapped out around the end of part 3, and then picked it up the next day or something. And I was sort of on eggshells when we ended it at part 3 because I was like, man, I really like this. This is really good. And the back half of the movie is where it sort of fell apart originally. But then we made it to the end of the movie, and I was like, wow, this was just good all around. Like, this was a crazy good movie. So,
It's oh, look, Troy's back.
Hey, there he is.
I'm back. All right, so I actually didn't end the broadcast. I know, right? I didn't end the broadcast, so
Oh,
I'll
okay.
catch you guys later.
Okay. Cool.
And then we'll continue this conversation on the back half, guys. But thanks for joining.